Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about The Ultimates issue 11 by Dennis Camp, Juan Frigeri and Federico Blee. Thor and Sif make their return to the pages of The Ultimates as they have departed Earth to sort out the realms beyond, which thanks to Loki taking control of Asgard have fallen into chaos. Thor and Sif head to Nidavellir, home of the dwarves. And this is where Dennis Camp continues to find new and interesting ways to tell stories with these characters, as it's very evident that this entire issue is going to be written as a poem, complete with rhyme and rhythm. Every issue of this run has been refreshing in some unique way, and it really sets it itself apart from the normal 616 universe, and I love that we can just have an issue that's just a big poem, basically. It also keeps the plot, which is your pretty simple heroes go from place to place, refreshing as well, since we've seen that time and time again, but we haven't seen it as a old school poem. Thor and Sif stick to the shadows as the dwarves are being used as slave labor, forced to work in factories and assembly lines. They meet with Brock and Etri, the bickering brothers who forged Mjolnir. Thor gives them a special task to create cloaks of invisibility so they may travel the realms without alerting the all-seeing eyes of Loki. The dwarves agree and quickly get to work, as in Asgard, Loki grows fat on his throne, his once razor-sharp mind and wit dulled by the fact that he's not a true ruler, he's a puppet ruler made so by the Maker. I really like this take on Loki, a god who has given up. He can't take the lies around his own rule, and so he just drowns his sorrows with mead and food. It's completely the opposite of what you usually get with a scheming, backstabbing, ever-moving god of mischief and lies. It's a god who can't take the lies. It also speaks to the Maker and what he's been doing to this world since he came here, since he's not just taking the fight to the heroes, but also to the villains as well, and instead of like making sure villains don't exist, he wants them to exist, but then he's also making it so he has total and complete control over these villains. And some, like Loki, are not happy about that, however they don't have the power to stop the Maker. We're seeing bits of that even on Earth where, you know, he's got his little cabal there, and now that he's gone missing, they're all trying to like vie for like the power of the little cabal as well. They're trying to like become the leader over the other guy. And they're only able to do that because the Maker isn't around, because if he was around, they would never try anything like that. Along with Loki is Idun, a young woman who carries with her a basket of immortal apples, from which Loki has been feasting on, and not just eating, but eating in front of the starving immortals of Asgard, all whom beg for another bite of the apples that have been keeping them young. I'm probably going to make mention of it a couple of times throughout this review, but Dennis Camp has a real knack for weaving real world things into his books. He doesn't just like make it very obvious, like he weaves it in quite well, and I think this is what he's doing here with Loki, because Loki is obviously representing the rich, fat elites. You know, they just are bored and can't really do anything in the world, but they, you know, withheld stuff from the common people. In this case, these apples, these life-saving things that would give these people lives. They hoard them for themselves because only they should have them. And this is stuff we see in the real world with like medical advancements, and just medical care in general is often held back from just normal people and reserved for the people who can afford it, quote unquote. Thor and Sif, now with invisibility cloaks, arrive in Asgard, free to move around without being seen by Loki or any of the frost giants guarding the place. Along with the frost giants policing Asgard, they also find Hela, who has taken over Valhalla as her own realm. Thanks to her role in helping Loki, she was rewarded the realm. There's a lot to unpack through this as well. You know, the greed and gluttony has taken control of Asgard, which feels really weird to say, since Asgard, for the most part, is meant to be this kind of grand sweeping realm, you know, the jewel of the Nine Realms, you know. And like when I think of Asgard, I think of like a bustling medieval city, you know, just full of life, you know, people walking around, you know, going about their day and everything. But here it's the exact opposite of that in every way. Everything is dead or dying. There's greed and death. Frost giants are, you know, policing the people. The people themselves are growing old and frail and dying because they don't have access to the thing that keeps them immortal. It's just very fitting for the Ultimate Universe. Thor and Sif move on to the realm of Alfheim, home of the Light Elves. The heroes know this to be once the land of creativity and inspiration, but now it's nothing but an AI slop machine overseen by hand agents. who are forcing the elves to make content instead of art to fuel the maker's plans and influence the realms. As I've said before, Camp is no stranger to injecting his stories with some sort of real-life meta-commentary. And here it's, these guys are just being forced into the AI slop mines. They're just making content, not art, all to fill non-existent voids, things that no one's asked for, but they're just doing anyway because, that's what the algorithm has told them to do. It's so cool, but also so grim since it's happening in real life as well. You go on Twitter or anything like that, and you'll just see bot account after bot account under big posts just saying the most baseline thing just to get some sort of engagement. I also feel like this being revealed, this this entire realm which is being used as a propaganda machine more or less, I think is the basis of Maker's plans for the Ultimate Universe. Not only did he change certain things in history, but this is how he's, as we've seen in also with what he's doing with Hand, how he's kind of keeping control of everything. He's using Hand and this realm to squash free thinking and to make it so that heroes cannot exist, because heroes exist through dreams and being a free thinker and having creativity. That's the basis of heroes and how they are born out of ideas, and having them taken away from them means there'll be less people who are thinking about going against him and rising up against him. And it's a really interesting idea, and I like that it's just ever so brief, just kind of touched upon in this book, and hopefully we get to see more of that. I love seeing the inner workings of how a world has gone to shit like this, and the little bits we've been getting throughout this book from Camp and then earlier from Hickman were just fantastic. Thor and Sif then move on to Vanaheim, where they try and ask the Vanir for aid against Loki and the other evils, but the nature-loving lords of life refuse to get involved, wanting to stay neutral since it's not their fight and they have their freedoms, so they are just going to be very selfish and just stick to their own and not bother helping anyone else get their freedom. Here is where things get quite interesting, since Thor and Sif take some time to rest, where it's revealed they have actually formed a romance during their travels. Their dynamic was something I was the most looking forward to in this book, and while it's a shame it's taken 11 issues to properly actually dive into it, I'm glad we're kind of just scratching the surface of it a little bit. I love the idea of Sif as Thor's jailer. When she started out, she was his jailer and was sort of chained to him more, quite literally, in order to see that he would eventually return to Asgard. And I like that over the course of their travels, all their, adventures with the Ultimates, and then obviously this, it's kind of softened her a little bit to him, and she's figured out that, he's not some brute or anything like that. And on top of that, they have also the fact that Asgard was kind of snatched away from them by Loki. Loki fooled them both, and Sif hates that. Sif wants vengeance on Loki, and of course the way she's going to get it is through the Ultimates and through Thor. So they have built up a kind of bond with each other and a trust. However, Thor puts this trust in jeopardy, as when Sif awakens after their night together, she finds Thor gone. However, he soon returns, his hands smoking with hellfire. Thor refuses to reveal what he has done, upsetting Sif, since now she feels like they have gone back to the old ways, where it was all just kind of business and important things were left unsaid and everything just kind of bottled up. Tired of just sneaking around, Thor heads to Jotunheim and openly attacks the frost giants. Killing so many of them, a new mountain range was created out of the corpses, a mountain visible from Asgard. This entire attack from Thor felt like vengeance for what Loki did to his father, since we saw what did eventually become of Odin. Odin was obviously killed in the early issues of this book, and then we see him in this issue, his head is on a stick in Loki's throne room. So he's completely been just besmirched in every way, and Thor wants vengeance for that. However, on a scale of shady things Thor has done, this is definitely up there, since he's effectively killed off an entire race. Yeah, the Frost Giants are almost always monstrous villains, but it's pretty hardcore just to kill off an entire race and make mountains of their corpses. That's up there with things Thor has done, and it's pretty awesome, but also it's it's a little bit shady. I don't know about heroes killing entire races. It's a bit shady, but I like that you can do that in the Ultimate Universe, because if normal Thor had done this, just gone and genocided an entire race, that would be a completely different story. Soon we learned this was actually all just a distraction to clear Loki out of Asgard. As well, he's gone to deal with Jotunheim. Sif freed Eden from her chains and killed everyone else in the throne room before reteaming with Thor in Niflheim, where they regroup with the Warriors 3 and a few other rebels who refuse to bow to Loki. Thanks to the woman's apples, the Asgardian immortals are able to be restored to their younger, healthier selves, and just in time too, as Loki returns to find the woman gone, ordering the gathering army to find them. Again, thanks to this Loki being just so, out of his depth, uncharismatic, and just not what he usually is, he can't really deliver a usual rousing speech that a Loki would be able to his army of monsters, and he kind of falters in his speech, and as the text say, he stammers, and it's implied that his hold over these creatures kind of falters a little bit slightly, but it's still strong enough to have them go and enslave the Vanir, taking all of the realm's leftover freedoms. Thor also gathers his own army, made up of various peoples who are all realizing that they now don't have to bow to the autocrats and their rules. Instead, they can just kick their heads in and make war. Thor to me has always been a for the people hero. Even when he is ruling as king, he's always had the best interests of his people in mind. But I really adore this version of him where he's kind of done with that. He doesn't want anything to do with that, and he's kind of this rebel leader who's gathered up the people to take the fight to the establishment and rip back the future that was stolen from them. Much like his time with Sif though, not all is as it seems, as earlier when he left Sif, Thor actually ventured into Muspelheim, desperate and frustrated, and it's there he made a deal with Surtur to burn it all down. Really like how this fits in what we have seen so far of this Thor, with Thor being, of the people, rebel leader of sorts, since he's not interested in, defeating Loki and then, installing himself as ruler, or someone as ruler that's like, friends with him. He doesn't want any of that, it seems. He just wants it all wiped away so it can't ever happen again, which is probably the smartest thing to do. I love Thor not being bound by the rules of wanting to uphold Asgardian tradition either. As I said, the 616 universe, Thor would defeat Loki and then, become ruler. He's not doing that here. He's going his own way, and that ends with Asgard disappearing maybe, which is quite interesting. I wonder as well if this will lead to Asgard getting destroyed, and maybe we'll have some sort of version like we had in Earth 616, where Asgard kind of becomes part of Earth and they end up in Oklahoma or, somewhere in the Midwest. Very exciting things in store for Thor's future, and I'd really wish they would just announce that, we've got an Ultimate Thor book happening, because just getting little bits like this in, every couple of issues really is starting to not be enough, and, his story can definitely hold over a series. So I'd be intrigued to see if they have something in the store for Thor eventually, but it feels like there needs to be a book coming very soon that's just his. While Thor leads the rebellion against the Nine Realms elite, Tony Stark is healed of his wounds thanks to the Immortus engine, among other lab-grown organs and fixes. Thanks to being connected to the Immortus engine, time is literally running through Tony's veins, and it begins to become too much for him. So he slows things down and stops the engine, but not before catching a glimpse of Banner killing the Ultimates. Seeing this makes him confront Doctor Doom, demanding Reed explain what it is and what it means. Now this is exciting since Doom is now confronted with the thing he's been actively trying to hide from the team, or cloak the team from. This is the thing that Star-Lord warned him about, that the team will eventually turn on him and he'll be forced to do something, and I think we're headed in that direction. It's also the beginning of the time travel shenanigans back into place, since the fight didn't end with the Ultimates being killed. It could have if Doom had not intervened and teleported them out. So this is a possible future that could still maybe happen, and I'm fascinated at what this could mean, since they've sworn off using the Immortus engine to tamper with the timeline any more than it already has been. But this could also mean this is like the birth of the Kang character we saw in Ultimate Invasion, the birth of time travel being used to attack the Maker and fix the Maker's assaults on Earth 6160. The Ultimates issue 11 was a very fun way to do an age-old adventure through far-off world story. I love the idea of the plot being one long poem exploring the Nine Realms, what the Maker has done to all of them, and how Thor intends to fix it all by burning most of it down. Like his many other books, Dennis Camp weaves real-world meta-commentary into his plots so damn well, and here is no different. We are currently 6 months until the Maker's return, and all the pieces are starting to fall into place, and I can't wait to see what Dennis Camp and his team have in store for us in the next issue. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10.